What's up, everybody? Ask MVP here. This is the Mark Weber, and we got some questions here, so I want to get straight to it. The first one I'm going to get to is one that, of course, was commented on last week's Ask MVP video. You guys can, leave more questions down there. You can also send your questions to askmvp@gmail.com. So this one is asking by Bomber BCM, what are your guys' thoughts on the NBA adding a 1v1 tournament into the All-Star weekend? That's the question, but I'll read the rest. As the most common form of basketball we recognize, and as a fan, I'd love to see it. I understand that maybe All-Star players may not want to compete because of fear of getting their ankles broken, but I would still want to see it. They could make it like a Rising Star game and allow players in their first or second year to compete and try to build their brand. We've seen how the dunk contest got Zach LaVine so much popularity. I don't really watch basketball, so I could have said that name wrong. I don't know. So this could be an evolution for that of skilled players that aren't natural dunkers. I actually would love this. This would be something I would love to see. Like I said, I don't really watch basketball anymore. I'm got kind of over it. Part of that because the Chicago Bulls suck. Yeah, I think this would be super cool. It reminds me of something, like an NBA Street, basically. I think that would be cool, but, I do think you'll have some challenges with players wanting to play 1v1. I mean, you have a huge difference in certain kind of players as well, where you have somebody who might be more of a jump shooter as to somebody who's going to take it to the rim. And maybe that's interesting to see. But at the same time, I think it would be very difficult to actually get good matchups in that case. But it would be cool. What you might have be kind of interesting is, 3-on-3 instead. Just do something different to where these guys got to get a little bit more creative or something. 1v1 certainly could be cool. It'd be interesting. But the biggest problem I think that the NBA has is that the stars don't want to do stuff. I mean, that's the problem they had with the dunk contest, that nobody's kind of willing to buy in. I don't really blame players for not wanting to do that. It's not worth the risk of getting hurt, essentially. Would it be awesome? Hell yeah, I would love to see that. It would actually make me watch basketball besides March Madness, which is really the only thing I care about when it comes to basketball. So, moving forward, some more things here. We have an interesting question here and kind of a tough one, so let's get into it. Why can't a league change and correct something they got wrong, just like the Oscars did over the weekend? So what this is saying, here's an example, is the Touchception, of course, directed by Christopher Nolan and starring Leonardo DiCaprio. If you guys remember this game, and I don't know how you wouldn't, but there was the, heaving the ball up there. It's caught by a Packers receiver. It's intercepted by a Seahawks, actually opposite way. And the question was who had possession, and they give it to the Seahawks when it probably should have went to the Packers. And the Packers should have won the game, but really the Seahawks won the game. And there's tons of times where referees, umpires, whoever get the call wrong. And what this question is asking is why can't they do what the Oscars did, which was, hold on, guys, we announced the wrong winner. Let's go back and let's fix it. And these are the people who actually won. I kind of feel that these aren't really that comparable in a way, because they are two completely different things. I mean, you have something where there were actual votes made, and you have that tally of that, and it was right then and there. I think when you have a catch, for example, that may or may not be a catch, and you review it and you find out, oh, it actually wasn't a catch. Or, if you were to, any kind of penalty, if you were to review that, if you review a shot made or maybe not made, something like that. And then you go back and you make that correction. To me, I think that's a little bit more comparable in this situation. To go back a few days later and say, oh, wait, by the way, actually, this team is the one that really won. So we're going to go back and we're going to fix that. I don't really think you can do that. But let's be real. The main reason you can't do it is because of Vegas. It's all about the money, right? You can't go back and do that because people already won money on those games. That's my cynical opinion on that one. I don't know, it's worth thinking about, but I don't know. I don't know if it's really as comparable. So let's talk about something not sports, and we'll get back to sports. Hey, Mark, do you read? What are your favorite books? All right, I like to read. I know how, and I like doing it. I actually don't get to read as often as I wish anymore because I'm an adult who has a job and stuff. And also, when you're getting married, you have to spend time with the person that you're getting married to. So I can't just sit in my room and read. So some of my favorite books of all time. I love Harry Potter. Love the whole series. It's fantastic. If for some reason you haven't read Harry Potter, you should do that. And there's actually a study that says that people who read Harry Potter have better empathy than people who don't. So there you go. You should read it. And some other things I love, of course, I love a lot of sci-fi. I love a lot of books with space. It's got space in it. I'm happy. Slaughterhouse-Five by Kurt Vonnegut is my favorite book of all time. A book that I'm going to be reading soon is Old Man's War. If you like space operas, big space epics, that's a highly recommended one. And I haven't read it yet, but I'm going to soon. I've also, on audiobook, on Audible, I've been listening to Game of Thrones. I'm, fan of the TV show and decided I should finally actually read the book or have someone speak it to me when I'm in my car. So that's been fun too. I like to read a lot. So Jameis Winston said some dumb shit. And it's worth talking about. If you don't know, basically Jameis Winston was giving a little speech in a classroom to some students, and obviously there are boys and girls there, and these are elementary age kids. And he tells the girls, he's having the girls sit down, he's having the guys stand up. And he makes this comment to get these students engaged. He says, that basically women are supposed to be silent, and they're supposed to be quiet, and boys are supposed to be big, loud, and strong, and stuff like that. And the problem was, and I'm sure all of you have heard about this by now, but the thing that people are saying is, Jameis, why did you have to exclude these girls? Why couldn't they be included? To the point where evidently a little girl said to one of her teachers, but I'm strong too. I don't necessarily want to call Jameis Winston out or anything like that. Although his actions have made it seem like he probably does not have the most respect for women. Those are just following a pattern of actions that I've seen out of him and that any of you can see as well. But I think the biggest thing for Jameis Winston, and it's something that Ricky here on MVP was quick to point out as a former teacher, is that, yeah, Jameis isn't a teacher. He doesn't know how to engage all these people, and that's completely true. But I really think it's just one of those times where you just say something dumb. Really is what it comes down to, and I don't think anyone's that surprised that Jameis Winston is not the most eloquent speaker. But he said something dumb and looks dumb because of it, and we all are going to criticize him for it. I think it was such a stupid thing to say. You got to really think about the actions or the response to the things you say, and his kind of, I was just trying to get people involved, didn't make it any better. Anyways, got another one here, and this question is, once again, kind of going off of the Oscars. How do you feel about political statements being made by actors or athletes? So my thought on this is, and I could talk about this for a really long time, but I'll make it short. A lot of people were upset with jokes being made about Trump, if you're on that side of the aisle. A lot of people were nervous that Lady Gaga was going to make a spectacle out of her halftime performance. People were really nervous about whether somebody would kneel during the national anthem of the Super Bowl, because people were kneeling throughout the national anthem all NFL season and in other sports as well. People were very upset about these type of things. So it keeps coming up now about actors, musicians, athletes, people who are in the public arena making political statements. And people, the argument that I keep hearing is people will say, keep your politics out of basketball, because I go and watch basketball as an escape from the real world and stuff that I don't like. I want to have 60 minutes or whatever, however long you want to watch that game, because let's be real, commercials, you're going to watch a game for like 3 hours. I want to have that time where I'm not focused on anything. I'm just watching some sports, just zoning out. But my thing that I kind of get stuck on is I have a problem with telling somebody you can't be yourself. And if you want to speak out on certain issues as an athlete, an actor, whatever it might be, that you can't do that. Now, it seems to fall in line that most of these people all are leaning the same direction. And maybe that's the real issue that people are upset about. Although at the flip side of that, if people lean the other way, then the other side would probably be upset about it. So it's kind of a lose-lose situation in that point. But my main thing that I think about with these political statements is simply the fact that if you were ever so privileged, and I know people hate that word currently because it's a buzzword for people to use, but if you were ever so privileged to have this great success about you, whether that is by business, by your physical abilities, your mental abilities, whatever it might be, if you're ever so privileged to have that platform and to have that success, you should want to give back in some way or another, whether that is financial, and we see plenty of athletes having charities and organizations that they make, doing back-to-school programs, things like that. Whether you are doing that or you are speaking up for the little guy who can't speak out for themselves, because I'm sorry, Dave Oster, if you're watching this, but athletes are role models. And this is a conversation that comes up on MVP every once in a while. But athletes are, in fact, role models. And these kids look up to these people. And we want to see them say, you should speak up for what you believe is right. You should make your voice heard. You should be a part of this. If you see injustices, you should speak out against that. If you are so privileged to have this money, you should give back to these type of areas you came from. And you see athletes who come from low-income areas give back to those areas all the time. I really see no difference in that with political statements that are being made. And it's annoying when political statements are made and you don't agree with them, sure, but that's just kind of the way it is. Really, that's what it comes down to, is the fact that, sometimes you disagree with things that people say, and I don't think it's anyone's right to tell somebody that there should be no politics in sports, or there should be no politics in movies, things like that, because this is not something new. You're just hearing about it more often nowadays because everything is so instantaneous and we're all constantly on Twitter or Facebook or Reddit, whatever it might be. So we have no right to tell people not to make those statements. And you know what? If you really get so sick of it, turn it off. Vote with your wallet, vote with your time, vote with your eyes. And if something like the national anthem, someone kneeling bothers you, tune in late. If the halftime show bugs you because maybe Lady Gaga is going to do some political statement, don't watch it. Tune into something else instead. Go ahead and make your voice heard on Twitter about how you're not going to watch it then in that case. I think it's kind of a dumb point to continue going on and on about, and for people to continue being upset about. Let me know what you guys think down below on any of the questions that we did. You can leave your questions for next week here or at the email askmvp@gmail.com. Of course, you can go on Twitter at @TheMarkWeber or @MostValuablePod. Either way, you can do that. We'll see you guys next week for more questions, but make sure you hit that sub button and check out all the other videos we got going on. Tons of podcasts, tons of videos. So go enjoy, guys. I'll see you next week.